Steam locomotives have been part of daily life in South Africa for well over 100 years. They've been largely taken for granted. Noisy machines which move goods and people from A to B. But now the spotlight is on them, and they are caught in a tug-of-war. Loved by some, regarded as uneconomic relics by others, they cannot be ignored. In the midst of all the nostalgia, the decision-making and the publicity, are the few people to whom these glamorous machines are also workhorses. For South Africa is still a working steam country. Drivers and firemen are paid to work the engines. Steam enthusiasts from all parts of the world pay a fortune to come and watch them doing so. South Africa is one of the very few places left where you can still see a steam engine simply doing its job. But it won't be so for long. Progress is relentless. Soon the sight and sound of a steam locomotive working a regular train up a heavy grade will be no more than a memory. As the nostalgia mounts, so the need to indulge it becomes more pressing, and an increasing number of steam specials are now being run by the railways and other bodies. These are romantic journeys on steam-hauled trains designed to bring back the atmosphere of steam travel. Among the most glossy are the railway's steam safaris, one of which began in Cape Town in November 1983. The passengers came from far afield: Germany, France, Switzerland, the UK, the USA, Australia. It was a sign of the times that the steam safari left Cape Town behind an electric locomotive. Steam engines are not allowed inside the station. The locomotive, which really opened the safari, was aptly chosen. A 25 NC, the biggest and most powerful of all. She was coupled to the train at Belleville. These engines still work mainline trains in the Karoo, thundering through the night and shattering the peace of tiny line-side towns. But the journey on this balmy first evening would be a gentle one through the gracious winelands of the Southern Cape. A new day with new locomotives. A garret piloted by a Class 24. A steam safari takes a lot of organizing. 12 days of travel, 70-odd passengers to feed and look after, and 27 different locomotives to have ready on cue. Drivers, firemen, water and coal to be laid on. All this, and still the difficulty of fitting in with traffic on the line and keeping to schedule. The route was to cover the length and breadth of the country, a journey of nearly 4,000 kilometers. The first lap ended at the little resort town of Neisner. Neisner stands at the end of the well-known branch line from George. The petite 24th class locomotives work this route regularly. They always have the same crews, men who care about them and love to show them off. No less than 3 immaculate engines would take the safari back to George. In steam terminology, the train was triple-headed. Presumably, enjoyment was likewise trebled. No well-run steam special is complete without a so-called photo run-past, an event specially staged to give the passengers a chance to photograph their train from the trackside. Gert Notnago, the technical manager on board, had the task of selecting the best sites.
That is just a matter of knowing the roads where the best part is for pictures. It all depends on the time, of course, that you get to a spot like where there's a good picture can be taken. But I think that is mostly decided on by knowing the road.
One of the places chosen for a run past was the well-known Caimans River Bridge. Essential to any good run past are great quantities of smoke and noise, the things that so obviously set a steam engine apart from an electric or diesel. But smoke and noise are only produced by an engine working hard, so run pasts usually take place on upgrades. A photo run past is no idle business. After dropping off its load of eager enthusiasts, armed with cameras and tape recorders, the train reverses some distance down the line. As soon as everybody has settled into position, the train accelerates and charges past at full speed, making as much smoke and fuss as possible. No one seems to mind being rained on by soot.
They just love it.
This was the second of a total of 26 run-pasts. Having retrieved its passengers, the train headed inland towards George and the Altyd Mountains beyond. For centuries, these mountains presented a formidable barrier to all forms of traffic. Then the Montague Pass was built, linking George with Altyd. The steam engines, which once tackled the 1 in 40 gradients of the route, were the much-loved Garretts. In the heyday of steam, their exhaust beats ricocheted off these mountains, and their smoke hung over the hard-won miles behind them. There was challenge, excitement, and plenty of theatre. But today, powerful diesels climb smugly up to the Little Karoo, their unmodulated throb revealing little about how hard they're working. On the afternoon of the safari, steam gave a belated encore. A GM AM Garrett was double-headed with a Class 24. The spectators were already positioned on the opposite hillside. They are the enthusiasts who chase trains to photograph them, rather than actually travel on them. Among steam lovers, they are known as greisers. The Altyd reach their full height and then flatten out gradually into a narrow plateau known as the Little Karoo, bordered on the north by the Great Swartberg Range. This is ostrich country, and Altyd's reputation today rests far more heavily on these oversized birds than on a once splendid steam railway. At Altyd, double-headed 19Ds took over, engines which traditionally worked the section of line from here to Port Elizabeth. The next lap would be a long one. 440 kilometers eastwards from Oudtshoorn to the sea. South Africa is a waterless land, and areas like this, in the rain shadow of high mountains, are particularly arid. The water is life to steam engines, producing the very stuff that propels them along.
Our bigger problems today is now with the phasing out of steam on some of the regions, of course, is water and coal facilities. Water we can still overcome by using a feeder tank onto a locomotive, but of course at some places the coal stage was already taken off, so we had to do that with machines or by hand.
But at other stations, such as Willowmore, the coaling and watering facilities had not yet been dismantled. Trapped between two high mountain chains running from east to west, moving through country that was all but empty, the safari passengers could be forgiven for feeling isolated, encapsulated in a fragile shell of civilized living. Good food, good wine, everything was on board. Outside, mile upon mile of very little. Port Elizabeth, South Africa's third largest port, and the place where the 1820 settlers landed, is also the terminus of a narrow gauge line built to serve the fruit industry of the Langkloof Valley. The rails are 2 feet apart, compared to South Africa's normal 3'6", which is in itself narrow compared with the 4' 8.5" gauge used in most parts of the world. So this is a narrow gauge line. Nonetheless, it plays its part in the economy of the country, in industry, and in tourism. On this Saturday morning, the safari passengers joined the locals on the famous Apple Express on its weekly joyride to Luri, 46 kilometers inland. Although most of the traffic on the line is handled by diesels, this little train is exclusively steam, and its potential as a tourist attraction hasn't been ignored. Van Staten's Bridge is the highest railway bridge in South Africa. Another run past was laid on here, so the passengers walked across the bridge and found positions for photographs on the opposite bank.
Good shot actually.
The next leg of the journey was along the main line from Port Elizabeth to DR, and then to Kimberley. The number, variety, and sheer spruced-up showiness of the engines used on the Safari bordered on pageantry. Engines rarely used together were specially double-headed, like this pair, a Class 12AR and a 15AR. At Cookhouse, they were exchanged for diesels, which were only sneaked onto the train at night, when time could be gained without sacrificing aesthetic pleasure.
We did use electric and diesel power, but that was only for overnight runs, and of course where it was just impossible to get the steam to work the train.
DR is a small town, but it's an important mainline junction, and it's never quiet. The sounds of steam continue throughout the night. The Safari had arrived here very early behind diesel. Its next locomotive was already being prepared, the illustrious Class 16E. This one, number 858, is the only working example left of a mere 6 originally built. They were exclusive prestige locomotives, built to haul crack passenger trains at high speeds.
Very, very nice locomotive. We had a beautiful trip behind that locomotive from DR to Kimberley.
Lean and lithe, with 6-foot driving wheels, the 16E can easily reach 160 kilometers per hour.
It depends on the maximum speed of the section, but she can run pretty fast, I would say.
Number 858 is only steamed for specials nowadays. She spends most of her time standing silently at Beaconsfield Shed in Kimberley, a retired pedigree racehorse. Beaconsfield Locomotive Depot is one of the biggest steam sheds in the country. It is home depot to many of the engines which work the 300-kilometre section between Kimberley and De Aar, one of the few busy main lines still worked largely by steam. Also normally on static display outside the shed foreman's office is number 3511, the last surviving member of the 25th class. Her characteristic feature is her ability to economize on water. 5 huge cooling fans on top of the tender condense the exhaust steam back into water for reuse in the boiler. For the safari, she was brought back to life. Getting a hibernating locomotive